I'm then excited about going back in any film of this scale. Are you kidding? Orson Welles once says the best trained set a boy could ever have. Anything of this scale is just, you got to be able to embrace it. You got to be able to live with stress. Let's do it.
Should we try it?
It can only be a fuck up. We learn something each time. Let's just do it. Yeah. Right? In fact, you got to embrace stress, and I do. I find it keeps me flying. You know, I do a lot of other films, so I was always busy and always evolving something. And after a while, I started to think about, well, one really should think about a sequel. And that we tried 5 years ago, and it defeated us, so we let it go. And then it restarted the engine about 2 years ago, I think.
We talked about a sequel over 20 years. And we were also respectful of how many things that had gone right on the first one, that we really didn't want to sully that.
We were just trying to figure out what would be a non-rip-off sequel that would tie in, be inspired by, not be overshadowed by, be respectful of, and that was a tricky path, but a very, very challenging, fun one.
Connecting the first film and its iconography in cinema history to the film we've just made was an incredibly important and meticulous task for Ridley and all of the filmmaking team.
We circled for a long time in search of a story that seemed really worth telling, and it was only a few years ago that we really thought we had an idea that was strong. It was always the Lucius journey. It's always the story, a little bit James Dean, of an alienated son and a kind of homecoming, someone who's rejected everything about his boyhood.
The idea of somebody who has, at the end of that first movie, been cast to the winds, right, and has fled from Rome and, been cut off from everything.
In the last scene of the first movie, we see a young boy watching the horrible death that he's just witnessed of Maximus, and Maximus being carried out.
The original Maximus, his dying words are, is Lucius all right? She said, he's all right. She says, go to them. So she then tells him to be gone, and he goes into the afterlife, where he walks into the wheat field and goes to his wife and his dead son. And so we didn't see her get rid of the boy, Lucius.
I mean, it's not subtle that there's a relationship between Maximus and Lucilla, but it's definitely sort of subtle that we pick up that it's really Maximus's son.
And so our story takes off with this boy who was next in line for the throne, and his mother wanted to protect him because she knew that now with the power vacuum of Commodus being killed, Joaquin Phoenix from the first movie, there would be a lot of juggling, and he would be a potential target for an assassination. So she sent him away for his own safety, but he was too young to really understand this, and he was sent to North Africa where hopefully he could lead a normal life and people wouldn't know who he was and he could survive.
You're sending him into the wilderness where you will eventually, within a day or two, lose track of him completely forever. From the heel of Italy, his trip would be down to, because they know friends in Egypt. There'd be a tracking possibility of relatives that the Romans might be aware of with Lucius, and they would track through the relatives. And on the way, probably killing each relative.
From Lucius's point of view, he feels his mother abandoned him, sent him away, and he has a contempt for the Rome he grew up in.
Well, the irony is, he is again raided by the people he has learned to hate when they're land-grabbing legions that simply want to own the world. Why does somebody want to own the world? They had a massive empire which stretched from the north of England into North Africa, far west to Constantinople, and all of Spain. They were seriously thinking about heading towards India and the Far East. Right? So the empire was massive, and here they are deciding to descend on Africa Nova, New Africa, because they felt, why? No reason why other than to have it and own it. Like that.
That's lovely, yeah, nicely backlit.
It doesn't feel right going big. I think actually it's about, there's more power in me going.
I usually cast the leads. I've always doing something as I'm preparing it with I've already got somebody in mind, because I'm just watching things and go, him. I usually have a physical type in my head, And when you're drawing, you're already starting to see people in the role. And so my drawing is more than my sketchbook, it's my plan. We'll bring them this way as I swing in the brothers in bed sheets and things coming from that. So you come together in this room, you arrive together. And Denzel, I've got sitting as the master of this organization of what's happening, is sitting there. So when you walk in, Denzel maybe right this time acknowledge you, and you then come to do the scene.
Credit to Ridley. He really put a wonderful cast together. He painted the canvas. There's all types of people and talents. And you know, it helps so much, with especially this, well, the clothes help too, but the environment, where we are, and everywhere you look, it feels like history. It all just helped. I couldn't imagine just doing this on sets, you know. There's a size and a scope that the landscape itself brings.
As with the first movie, where it was a minor miracle that Russell Crowe existed at the time, we needed a character like that to play Maximus. Paul Mescal may be as equally lucky a piece of casting.
I was flicking around and I found a show that I've never normally watched called Normal People. It's very well done. And Paul reminded me of Richard Harris as a crossover with a very young Albert Finney. So there's a very good DNA in right there, plus the nose, right? And he was a very sound and solid and sympathetic actor. And I got binge watching on this, and from that, as this story and this script started to evolve, I started to think about him. That's how I tend to cast.
So yeah, the first Gladiator obviously holds a huge amount of weight for not just myself, but like a huge amount of people across the world. So it's not lost on me what we as a cast of actors and Ridley are stepping into.
You fought well today, but you were lucky. First of all, he's a wonderful young man. And one of the things he brings is that he's a consummate professional. He's obviously very talented, very humble. It's almost a bit of a proud father kind of thing for me, you know, just watching him do his thing. And he was saying to me today how he had to keep a straight face and, you know, and all of that. And he's just a wonderful actor, a wonderful human being, and quite talented. And like I said, the sky's the limit for him.
There was a moment stepping out in kind of gladiator armor where I was like, okay, whoa, this looks like it's going to happen. But I think as an actor, you've got to be very quick to kind of dispel any notions of not necessarily ego, but playing into the idea that something is iconic before you've made it. You've got to earn that. And I was keen to kind of expel those thoughts in the prep process and in the filming, because it's like, they didn't make the first Gladiator with the intention of it being what it became. They made a film, they worked hard, and it became what it was through the quality of the filmmaking and the acting. That's a harder thing to do when you're aware of the legacy when you're stepping into it.
I'm ready, yeah.
Once Paul started the movie, we continued to be amazed. He had never ridden a horse. He started doing daily training. Pretty soon he was arguing with Ridley about doing stunt work. Paul was tenacious. You'll see a few of his stunts in the movie. And his instincts for what's true in the scene are remarkable for a young man. And he became, as a great actor is, the kind of custodian of his character Lucius. And he protected Lucius, and we all learned to trust his gut.
It's for other people to decide what they want in terms of what the film means to them. But I'm incredibly proud of the process and the work that went into this film from a personal side, and also in terms of the finished product of the film.
I have only 2 words for how we did everything, and those 2 words are Ridley Scott. He has capacities that are almost superhuman in terms of keeping stuff in his head. He storyboards the movie frame by frame, months before you ever start shooting. He has all the battle sequences in his head, and other sequences too, but all the big spectacle things he has. And not only does he draw them himself, he also paints them himself.
Ridley's a genius, like his late great brother, and it's more than an opportunity and a pleasure. He's I'm gonna say a national treasure and all that. I know he'd hate me saying those kind of things. He's a gruffy old genius, you know, and I love him. He just gets on with it, and he's a visionary. I mean, what he sees and how he puts it together, and his team, you know, I don't have to think or worry about anything. Just put the gear on and do my part.
You have 2 up there, 1 there, 1 here.
2,
That's
4, 8 today.
The speed, if you know where to and how to do it, 5 cameras are 5 times faster. If I've got a big scene, I have 11 cameras. I'll say, camera, gonna walk in there, it's gonna come. And that comes from me boarding it, because I know where to put a camera. But that said, for a cameraman, it's like John Matheson or Darius Wolski, it's hell, because they gotta cope with multi-angles and different size lenses. But it means everyone is on all the time. And I dress the camera operators in costume. And I wrap the cameras in some sacking so you barely see them. If you slow a film down, you can see, oh, there's a camera. I think at least 3 here.
Yeah, we're getting three on the floor.
It's really efficient. But if you're not used to it, don't try it. You'll get into chaos. You won't make a shot till 3 o'clock. Normally we're shooting by about 9 in the morning. You know, it's all to do with prep, dude. Prep. If you walk on the floor, you don't know what to do, you haven't prepped.
And John was the perfect DP. He had been here before, he did a brilliant job. He's a storyteller with shadows and light, with character, with the action. So the old team was back.
This is the market square outside the Coliseum, and the entry to our set is here. We're looking at an ancient arch which is very early in the empire. That's why it's partially buried. This was built 500 years ago, we're surmising. And beyond that is the actual wall of the Fort Recostoli here in Malta. And the reason why we're here is because we're surrounded by ancient stone walls as a backdrop to our set build within it. And we try to match the flavor of the existing walls to the set pieces as best we could, color and texture. This was inspired by David Roberts, who was a famous English 18th century illustrator and engraver. And it's kind of inspired by one of his engravings. We had it on the first Gladiator, so we thought, why not bring it back?